Do you remember the excitement of gathering around the television, the muted clink of ice in glasses and the aroma of popcorn wafting through the den as the opening theme to your favorite show began? In the 1960s, TV wasn't just entertainment. It was the thread that stitched families and neighbors close each week. Every night brought a new adventure or a familiar laugh, from the warmth of The Andy Griffith Show to the daring voyages of Star Trek. The static buzz as you fiddled with the rabbit ears or a flash of test pattern color still lingers in the mind, calling back the era when your world fit perfectly into a glowing, boxy screen. These were the stories that shaped our dreams and reflected a changing America. Civil rights struggles, journeys to the stars, and lessons woven into sitcom smiles. What memories spring to mind when you hear that unforgettable dun 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 da, or see a familiar family gathering at a black and white kitchen table? Let's return to those magic moments together and rediscover the shows that made the 60s so unforgettable, because you might be surprised by just how much they still mean today. Step back into the early 1960s and picture a living room after dinner, Dad in his favorite chair, Mum folding laundry beside him, and you and your siblings squabbling for the best seat on the couch. In those first years of the new decade, television had become America's electronic fireplace, the warm, glowing center around which life revolved. But to truly appreciate the shows that would come to define the 60s, we need to remember just how television itself was still in its adolescence. The post-war boom had already put a black and white set in most American homes by 1960, but the golden age of live drama and variety was giving way to something different, ushering in a revolution in storytelling, style, and social connection. It's amazing to think that back then your choice of shows was limited. You probably remember when there were only 3 major networks: CBS, NBC, and ABC. Each one offered a carefully curated lineup, and a missed episode often meant waiting for months to see it again, if ever at all. Television was still a shared, appointment-only experience. Families across the country would synchronize their evenings by the TV guide, planning their nights around Bonanza on Sundays or The Ed Sullivan Show when a new musical act was announced. There's something unifying, almost magical, in the idea that millions of families would be laughing, gasping, or humming along to the same story at the same time. Do you remember the anticipation building as the clock ticked towards showtime? Or the hush that would fall as an episode began, no one daring to chatter during a favorite character's introduction? Outside those living rooms, America itself was in the midst of profound change. The 1960s would see the country grapple with the civil rights movement, the space race, and generational shifts that no previous decade had ever witnessed. Television was both a mirror and a mold, reflecting what was happening on city streets while shaping the culture in return. TV anchors brought world events, like the assassination of President Kennedy, directly into our homes, forever changing how we experienced news and national tragedy. Yet for an hour or two each evening, the shows themselves provided an escape, a way to laugh, daydream, or learn gentle lessons. One of the most surprising facts about this early TV landscape is that only about 3% of households had a color television at the start of the 60s. Can you imagine watching The Flintstones or Bewitched in black and white, trying to guess the colors of Fred's tie or Samantha's magic effects? Color broadcasts were rare treats, full of wonder and marked with special announcements in TV ads and local newspapers. It wasn't until the mid-to 1960s, helped along by spectacular events like the broadcast of the Tournament of Roses parade in color or the futuristic palette of Star Trek, that color TV sales surged, forever changing the look and feel of home entertainment. Another little-known fact: before videotape became the norm, many TV shows were performed live or preserved on film by something called kinescope, a method that involved literally filming the TV screen as the show aired. This meant that bloopers, missed lines, and the sheer energy of a live audience became part of the charm. The risk of something going wrong was very real, but it gave early 60s television an unpredictability you just don't see. Today, have you ever caught an awkward glance between actors or a prop standing just a little out of place during a rerun? That's a living relic from this bygone era, a small imperfection that somehow made these shows feel even more real. But the early 60s weren't all about technical limitations. That same sense of limitation sparked a burst of creativity and ingenuity among writers, producers, and directors. Sitcoms like The Donna Reed Show or Leave It to Beaver continued the warm, family-centric tradition of the 1950s, but by 1960 a new crop of shows began to test boundaries. The Twilight Zone, for example, invited viewers into surreal, often unsettling worlds that tackled complex themes under the guise of science fiction. Creator Rod Serling, a name you probably remember, often snuck in messages about justice, fear, and prejudice, wrapped in spooky or otherworldly packaging. This sly technique allowed Serling and other visionary creators to discuss hot-button issues at a time when open political debate on primetime television was still taboo. Did any Twilight Zone episode send shivers down your spine or make you think long after the credits rolled? It's surprising how swiftly the TV landscape evolved during those first years of the decade. Historical westerns like Gunsmoke, Bonanza, and Have Gun, Will Travel remained wildly popular, echoes of an older America, perhaps clung to as comfort during a time of rapid change. At the same time, legal and detective dramas such as Perry Mason or The Untouchables offered tales of grit and justice, delivered with a seriousness and gravitas that made kids want to play courtroom after bedtime. What's more, variety shows with larger-than-life personalities, think the Jack Benny program or The Ed Sullivan Show, continued to be social events, introducing audiences to fresh talent, jaw-dropping novelty acts, and the music that would soon define a generation. One can't talk about the early 60s without mentioning the incredible explosion of sitcom families, picture-perfect in some ways, mythic in others. These programs reflected the hopes, anxieties, and humor of a rapidly changing American life. The Andy Griffith Show transported millions to an idealized Mayberry, far away from the headlines of the day. My Three Sons showed new definitions of family. And let's not forget the magic, literal and figurative, introduced by shows like Bewitched or The Addams Family, turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. What was your favorite opening theme? Did it make you feel like, just maybe, if you closed your eyes and believed hard enough, Mayberry or 1313 Mockingbird Lane might exist just down the street? Television of the early 60s was not just entertainment, it was aspiration and comfort, challenge and reflection. There's something almost brave in the way these simple sets, limited by technology and social convention, dared to gingerly touch on topics and dreams just outside the mainstream. The real marvel is how fully TV of this era managed to strike a balance, offering both a safe harbor from real-world uncertainty and, if you paid close attention, a subtle invitation to wonder, question, and hope. So, as families pulled closer to the screen, television became a kind of national storyteller. It's worth asking how many of your earliest lessons, biggest laughs, or wildest dreams were sparked by something you saw on that magic box. And with so few channels, every program became a shared cultural touchstone. Your favorite shows were probably someone else's too. That unifying power is hard to imagine nowadays in an age of endless channels and streaming choices. But that's not all the 1960s had to offer. As the decade rolled forward, changes in technology and taste brought about TV shows you might never have dreamed possible in those earlier days. The evolution from this humble, black-and-white world into the dazzling, colorful, genre-spanning landscape of the mid- and late 60s set the stage for unforgettable experiments in comedy, drama, and family fun. Ready to see just how wild and wonderful TV became when technology caught up with imagination? Let's flip the channel to the next part of our journey. As we arrive at the end of our journey through the golden years of 1960s television, it's hard not to let a gentle smile tug at the memory of those evenings spent side by side with loved ones. All eyes turn toward the same glowing screen. We've traveled from the humble beginnings of black and white broadcasts through the dazzling transition to color and into the living rooms where both new ideas and simple joys unfolded before a captivated nation. Together, we revisited those classic westerns that framed the great American frontier, the heartwarming comedies that made us laugh as families on screen navigated life's gentle ups and downs, and the daring experiments of science fiction and fantasy, shows that sparked our imaginations and expanded our sense of what could be possible. We remembered the anticipation of waiting all week for a Sunday evening episode, the hush that fell as a familiar theme song began, and the warmth of companions gathered to watch, whether it was a heart-stopping news broadcast or a rollicking variety show. The TV of the 1960s wasn't just a background noise, it was a character in our households, connecting us to the changing world outside and, perhaps even more deeply, strengthening the bonds within our own four walls. It taught us lessons in kindness, adventure, perseverance, and sometimes even heartbreak. Reminders that life, like television, was always an unfolding story. Looking back today, it's striking to realize just how much these programs resonated, their influence visible not only in what we watched, but in how we spoke, what we dreamed about, and the ways we navigated a changing America. And while television is now all around us, on phones, tablets, and in thousands of channels, nothing quite compares to those days when nearly everyone tuned in to the same handful of shows, building a common ground of shared references and treasured memories, the comfort of a favorite funny family, the suspense of a weekly whodunit, or the inspiration of boldly going where no one had gone before. These moments live on in the stories we tell and the nostalgia we feel. How often do you catch yourself humming an old TV theme or quoting a beloved character without even thinking about it? Which show, scene, or star will always have a special place in your heart? So I invite you to pause for a moment and think, which television show from the 1960s meant the most to you and why? Was it a program that made your family laugh together, or perhaps a story that inspired you to see the world differently? Take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments. After all, one of the lasting gifts of these TV classics is the unique memories they've helped each of us create, memories that become even richer when shared. Don't forget to like this video if it brought a favorite scene or old friend back to mind. Subscribe to the channel for more nostalgic journeys, and consider passing this along to someone who'd appreciate a trip down memory lane. The world may have changed a great deal since the 1960s, but those glowing screens still hold a special magic. The laughter, lessons, and wonder of that era remind us that no matter where technology takes us, it's the shared moments and simple joys that last the longest. Thanks for tuning in. Here's to the memories we made and to always finding a little bit of that old television magic, no matter how the channels may change.